So the governor's rebuild report, we're going to examine some teams who are currently rebuilding, kind of monitor their schedule this upcoming season, and see if this rebuild can happen, faster than we would like, or will this rebuild be slower than we like. And the first team on our slate is the team from Starkville, and that's the Mississippi State Bulldogs. I'm a huge fan of Jeff Lebby. I really like the way that, I really love the job, first and foremost, that he did in Oklahoma, headed to Mississippi State after just a terrible time in 2023 at Mississippi State, especially what happened to Will Rogers. There's a few players, like what happened to Will Rogers, being 100% lied to about the type of system I think it was Coach Arnett at the time was going to run, and it was just a pitiful time. So Mississippi State went 2-10 last year, 0-8 overall. The SEC wasn't a good year. His inaugural season was bad. Really a challenging schedule. 2-10 overall. And I think about Blake Shapen. I felt really bad for Blake Shapen last year, because if there was a guy who I felt like won the spring season of 2024, Blake Shapen. He looked re-energized from his time at Baylor. He looked like he was happy to be playing in Jeff Lebby's system. And granted, all of the games he played in didn't end in wins, and I believe he was hurt during the Florida game. He had a solid season, 8 touchdowns, 1 interception, and they took a really good Arizona State team down to the wire. I think they lost the game 30-23. So I'm interested to see what he looks like this year. I think they get Arizona State week 2 of this upcoming season. We're also going to get to Mississippi State this season. Their schedule. And then we want to also talk about, is there a role for them to be bowl eligible? I think year 2 for Jeff Lebby, I think you can make the boosters happy by being bowl eligible. You're playing in a tough conference. You're kind of in the bottom of the barrel in a really tough conference. But I think Mississippi State got some things. And they got some key players on this roster. I think a lot of it just gets overlooked because they were down early a lot in games. Running back Devon Booth had a really good season last year, really underrated season. But like I said earlier, Mississippi State was down early in so many games. He didn't get as many opportunities as he should have. He had 4 touchdowns on 13 receptions. Now, that tells me, as a coordinator, that we need to get this kid to rock in open space, because he's going to find a way to score. He had another 752 yards on the ground, average over 5 yards a carry, and 5 TDs. I think if he had more shares and had the ability to run the rock more, I think he'd have been more impressive. And it's kind of frustrating. But I truly believe with Shapen, with Booth, and Lebby, offensively, this team could have something brewing in Starkville. Let's look ahead at their schedule and kind of talk about who they play this year and what I think their path for bowl eligibility is. They start out week 1 at Southern Miss. That's a must-win game. Week 2, they play Arizona State. And I know a bunch of us are really high on Kenny Dillingham. We like what Arizona State did last year. We know they lost, Cam Scatterbull, but leave it as back at quarterback this year. If Mississippi State can find a way to win this game, I think this is kind of their key game to bowl eligibility. Play Alcorn State the week after that. So if they can start off the season 3-0, that would be really great for them. 2-1 is probably more likely with how good Arizona State is, but they played them well last year. And they're coming to Starkville this year, so it'll be interesting. And then they play Northern Illinois. They have to find a way to at least go 3-1. I think 4-0 is their way of making bowl eligibility. What do you guys rate Tennessee this year? Tennessee travels to Starkville. I think this is a game where I favor Tennessee heading into the game, but I think Mississippi State has a chance, especially if Blake Shapen is healthy, especially if they're clicking on all cylinders offensively. They have an opportunity to win this game. After that, they go to College Station at Texas A&M. That is a loss. They go to Florida in Gainesville to play Florida. That is a loss. Then they play Texas. That is a loss. At Arkansas, if they can, Sam Pittman, I think, is a coach that's fighting for his job this upcoming season. If they can find a way to beat Arkansas, now we're looking at about 5 wins. 5 wins. Then they play Georgia. I don't think they win that one. At Missouri, I don't think they win that one. They'll have a chance, but they don't win that one. Then they have their home game against the rivalry against Ole Miss, the last game of the season. Bowl eligibility will keep the boosters off of Jeff Lebby back. I think they'll say, hey, he's building something. Let's continue to let him cook. But I think the key is 3-1 coming out of the first quarter, if not 4-0. If they can find a way to win that Arizona State game, look out. Because 4-0, Tennessee's coming to Starkville. We could be talking about 5-0. I know that's pie in the sky for a lot of you, but, and looking at this rebuild report, I think we're going to try to look at the glass half full versus it's half empty. This isn't me doing the governor's ruling segment where I'm trying to beat down on the team. This is the rebuild report. I'm going to be honest, but I do think there's an opportunity for this team to be bowl eligible this year. I know it was ugly last year. Going 0-8 in your conference is abysmal. It's embarrassing. It truly is embarrassing. But, he did have a little, reason with Blake Shapen getting injured. I'm just hoping that this season they come out firing on all cylinders. They take these first 4 games very seriously, and then we'll see where they're at September 27th, week 5 against Tennessee. I'm interested to see what this Bulldog team will be this upcoming season. Coming up next on a rebuild report, we're going to talk about the Charlotte 49ers. I foreshadowed this in the opening. You probably didn't hear it because my mic was muted because I was in a different program because I was producing Moon's show and got in my program and forgot to make sure I changed my microphone. That was on me. That won't happen again. Well, I can't guarantee that won't happen again. But let's talk about their 2024 season. They were 5-7 overall, 4-4 in the AAC. And then they had Coach Biff Poggi, the first 10 games last season, and Tim Brewster, their final 2 games. They showed signs of progress. They was 500 in the conference. Did struggle offensively, only averaged 17.5 points per game. And they demonstrated resilience from time to time. With new leadership and focus on recruiting, Charlotte aims to build upon this foundation this upcoming season. Tim Albin knows how to win at the G5 level. And I think a lot of people were surprised that he opted to head to Charlotte over staying at Ohio, where they were able to win the conference last season. And also he was the 2024 Coach of the Year in the MAC conference. You don't think a guy, who is at a conference, knows how to win in a conference, just got Coach of the Year, and you think if he's not taking a P4 job, he's just going to stay right there. But I equate this move very similarly to I equated what Jamie Chadwell was at Coastal Carolina. He kind of done all he can do at Coastal, and I feel like Tim Albin did kind of all that he can do at Ohio. He went to a school that many people probably see as a lateral move. I don't see Jamie Chadwell going to Liberty as a lateral move, but some people see this, Tim Albin going from Ohio to Charlotte as a lateral move. I'm not so sure just because of the resources that are down in Charlotte. The weather is nicer in Charlotte. I mean, Myrtle Beach isn't too far away from Charlotte. Charlotte is a growing city. It's a budding city. The ACC is down there. So if there's a team, in the ACC who's looking for a coach this offseason and they see the work that Tim Albin does in Charlotte, he's right there. He's right there. So I really like this move for him. So I really do like the move, and the fact that they're going to, spend $70 million. It shows you that this university isn't afraid to spend money. $70 million on upgrades for the stadium is really cool. So I was looking over their roster. I saw that Connor Harrell is going to be the guy at the helm. I think the ACC had 5 different schools who brought 2 quarterbacks to ACC Media Days last year. I think Pitt was one of them. UNC was one of them. You guys know I hated the SMU move last year. They were another school. They had brought a bunch of people, bunch of quarterbacks to ACC Media Days. But Connor Harrell, I think this is the move that I really love this move. I think this kid has an immense amount of talent. I think what Tim Albin in his first year already been able to do via the portal, he's play some players around there. And if you kind of look at what Tim Albin is doing as head coach there, he's kind of moving in a similar way. Like, I look at how Jeff Brom has moved at Louisville. A lot of people don't like that he's constantly going to the portal to get his guys. Well, if you're constructing a roster and you're trying to construct that roster via high school, it'll take 2 or 3 seasons, sometimes even 4 seasons, to have all the guys that you recruited. When you first get to a job, a lot of those players were Satterfield's players. That's the name of the game. So he's looking at, okay, how do we win now and how do we win later? That's how programs are built. I think that's how teams are built in the NFL too. You build your team to have the ability to win now and to have that ability to win later. So I think that Tim Albin, seeing kind of what Jeff Brom was able to do at Louisville, hey, I don't have the players I want on this roster yet. Not the players that I recruit out of high school. Let me go ahead, get active in the portal, which he was able to do. Really active in the portal, and then 2 or 3 seasons, give me some time and I'll have the pieces that I need. So they got week 1 Friday night game versus Appalachian State. It's a neutral site game. Week 2 they play North Carolina. Circle this game. Everybody circle this game on the calendar. Because I promise you, remember when we saw JMU put up 70 points on North Carolina last year on its kind of head scratchers? Nobody's going to put up 70 points on a Bill Belichick coach team. I can tell you that. But the reason I'm telling you to circle this game is because I love those revenge games. Like I always talk about that September 20th game where Jackson Arnold and the people who think he's washed because he just didn't excel in Seth Luttrell's offense last season. I'm circling that game where he gets to go back to Norman and show y'all, hey, if I was in a better offense, hey, if I had these players around me, I would have been able to excel in your offense. So I got that game circled. And the reason I got this September 6th game is because Connor Harrell gets to go against a team that didn't really deem him as the guy as quarterback. So you think if he's not going to be motivated for that game, he's going to be very motivated for that game. And guess what? Charlotte's first 4 games are at home. They're at home. I've talked about on this show before that I believe that college football needs to probably go to an NFL-style scheduling just because of, some of the imbalance. But teams that are able to schedule smartly, like the Illinois of the world, I think they have 7 home games this year. Louisville has 8 home games this year. So that means they only have to travel 4 times on the road. The teams who have 7 home games mean they only have to travel 5 times. So to open up App State, it's a neutral site. They don't really consider it a home game, but it's a neutral site. I'm going to check that as a home game. Then they play North Carolina, Monmouth, Rice, at South Florida. South Florida, in my opinion, is a big dog in that conference. I really do believe they're a big dog in the ACC. I'm sorry, in the AAC. So they play App State, North Carolina. I'm interested to see what App State's looking like this year. They got a new head coach. We all remember what happened with, Hurricane Helena last year. And that team just really underwhelmed last year, if I'm being honest. But it was bigger than football. It was deeper than football. I think I had App State picked as my preseason pick to win the Sun Belt last year. But, it is what it is. So if Charlotte can come out and win that game, look out. Then week 2 versus North Carolina, I know everybody's circling in that game in Tar Heel country and Chapel Hill. It's going to be an easy way. I don't think Charlotte 49ers is going to be an easy out. I'm telling you, Tim Albin teams are going to compete. And North Carolina may end up winning the game, but they're going to compete. And Connor Harrell, his teammates, if he's able to be able to come in the spring, win over that locker room, and his teammates truly believe in him and believe he's the guy that can win games for them, they're going to want to go out and win that game for him and hand him that ball. So don't be surprised. They didn't play Monmouth, then Rice, South Florida, and Army. Army's lost a lot of production. They really have, but they can still be a stout team. So the App State team, I don't know where they're at. Charlotte 49ers, I don't know where they're at, but I'm going to give the 49ers an edge. Remember, glass half full. This is the rebuild report. Alrighty. North Carolina. I'm going to say North Carolina wins that game, but it wouldn't surprise me if Charlotte found a way to be competitive and be competitive down the stretch. Monmouth, giving that game to Charlotte, so let's say 2-1. Rice, I'm giving that game to Charlotte. Let's say 3-1. That's South Florida. I'm going South Florida. They're 3-2. At Army, that's a tough one. If they can find a way to stop the run, the loss of production that Army had, even though Army ran through the AAC last year, it'll be interesting. Versus Temple, I'm going to give them the win. So we looking at this right now. What are they? 1, 2, 3, 4-3. That's not bad. North Texas is a winnable game. They did lose their quarterback Chandler Morris. He's at UVA now. If they can win that game, look out, because then they're 5-3. Now they're really cooking. ECU is a budding program. I was able to go down to Greenville, North Carolina last year. First game of my tour last year. I know Moon started a week ahead of me last year, but I was able to see them play Norfolk State. I look forward to seeing Norfolk State. We always do a HBCU week every week. I'm not sure what week we're going to do that, but it's typically a week there isn't a lot of marquee games. UTSA, where's UTSA at this year? At Georgia and at Tulane as your last 2 games. It's rough for Charlotte. I think the ceiling is somewhere around 7-5, maybe 8-4, depending on how the cards lay. 6-6 bowl eligibility, I think, is a win, but 7-5 is even better. And Tim Albin, with his experience at the G5 level, he knows how to win at the G5 ranks. I promise you, he knows how to win. Up next, we're going to talk about Arizona Wildcats. Arizona Wildcats, I always talk about how Arizona State, how I kind of voted them as the last best team in the Big 12 last year, but we ain't going to talk about that. Arizona, I was really high on Arizona, and before the season, I think I had them ranked as one of the best teams in the Big 12. I changed on them at the very last minute, and I went with Kansas State. Kansas State kind of disappointed me, even though they didn't have a bad season. They disappointed me last year. But Arizona, after the success that Jeff Fish had at Arizona in 2023, to me, it was surprising that he left. He left in the fashion that he did. Like, there's a few coaches who really left their schools in a very disappointing way. I think Jed Fisher's one of them. Is this a forward move? He progressed by going to Washington. There's just more resources. Yes, he progressed. They're in the Big Ten. Yes, it was a progressive move. I'm not saying that. I just didn't like the way he left. Didn't like the way that Mike Elko left Durham. And the fans didn't and the media didn't. And they told you about it. I love going to media days because you hear these stories, the gossip stories about these, these reporters and stuff who's around the universities 24/7. The crap that I was hearing about Colorado in 2023 was mind-boggling, bro. Some of that I won't repeat, but we was hearing a lot of stuff. So I was surprised that Jed Fish left. Yes, it was a progressive move. I was just surprised because I was thinking that, hey, they can go into the Big 12, and the Big 12 could be for the taking. Didn't like the way that he left, but nonetheless, he left. So in comes Brent Brennan from San Jose State. I don't believe people truly know how difficult it is when these two things happen. One, you're making a conference change. The style of ball switches a little bit. It really does. Pac-12, very sexy football. I think Big 12 has a sexier brand of football as well. But a lot of these games, you better be able to win down the wire, down the stretch. I think that's how the Big 12 is. And they've had the closest scores over the last 5 to 7 years. A lot of their scores end up in one-score games, and the last 2 or 3 possessions of the game are going to really make a difference. And last year, they were able to show some flashes. It's just, I don't know. They just didn't. And I don't think Dino Babers, as an offensive coordinator, even though I do love the job that he did in Syracuse. I believe that was 2022. He did a marvelous job at Syracuse. But I don't think that was like a hand-in-glove fit. I just really don't. So 4-8. 2024. Brennan's trying to get the guys in the room, and it was crazy because Tataora McMillan, that wide receiver, Noah Fafita, I thought he was going to take a huge step forward in his progression as a quarterback. He didn't. Kind of went backwards, but I'm not out on Noah Fafita. I know Arizona has a tougher schedule this year. I believe Noah Fafita should be able to deliver. I think their offense will be a little bit changed this year. Now that they have Dino Babers is gone, they have Steph Doge, who comes from Marshall. I was able to see Marshall live last year. And one thing I learned about going to Marshall last year, which is in Huntington, West Virginia, was the stigmas that you have or the prejudices that you have may not always be true. Like, Huntington, West Virginia is beautiful, bro. Like, I went there, and we did go through a couple towns where, my expectations were reality, but I was blown away by Marshall. And that was one of those further trips that we took. But like I said, I was blown away about Marshall, and that has to be a staple. We're stopping there every year. Like, their fans were super dope. They were grabbing the cameras, talking trash in the cameras, because, we always try to get that B-roll activity so we can add it to websites or use it for B-rolls. If you ever seen, like, my show opening or World of College Football show opening, we used a lot of that stuff is capture footage that we got while we were at these games. But Seth Doge, his offense, it's a fun offense. I think it's pro style. I think he'll bring stability. Yes, they lost T-Mac to the draft. Hell of a wide receiver. But I think they'll have a lot of balance. I think Noah Fafita is going to want to prove a lot of people wrong this upcoming season. And then their running back, Ishmael Mahdi, he's a guy. He'll look to bring from Texas State. He'll look to bring physicality to this offense. So let's look at Arizona Wildcat schedule as with the theme for the entire rebuild report. What we want to look at and what we want to evaluate is how these teams look. What does their schedule look like? And is there a way for them to have some success? This is what the rebuild report is. It isn't a way for us to say, oh, boo, we hate your team. No, it's nothing like that. It's me looking at this thing as a glass half full, seeing where we are. Are we on schedule, ahead of schedule, or behind schedule? And it's okay if you're behind schedule, but we'll look at the schedule and see what is their formula, and are they able to get to can they compete for bowl eligibility? They had a terrible year last year. Bowl eligibility, I'm sure the fan base wouldn't be happy about that, but it's better than going 4-8, right? So they start off with Hawaii, that's a win. Weber State, that's a win. And they're another team with a myriad of home games. They got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 home games. So that's 7 at home, 5 away. So they got Hawaii, they got Weber State. They should start off 2-0. We'll see how Seth Doge is cooking, what Noah Fafita is looking like. Is he looking like Noah Fafita from 2023, who was poised, who was able to make a lot of throws from the pocket? He isn't dual threat, but he is mobile. He was also able to make some throws out of the pocket during that 2023 season. Then they play Kansas State and Iowa State. That's a tough stretch right there. You know, to play, home against Kansas State. We saw what Kansas State did to them. We was actually credentialed for that game last year, but my schedule would not allow me to get to that game this year. That will not be the case. I promise you, I'm taking a leave of absence from work, and I'm going to do this college football thing 24/7 during the college football season. And that may be the way to go moving forward anyway. They ain't go at Iowa State. Anybody who knows, been following this for a little while, I'm high on Iowa State. I'm really high on Iowa State. I think they're going to win the conference. I really do. So I'm giving that a loss. Kansas State, where's Kansas State at this year? Chris Kleiman at? Was Avery Sunshine Johnson at? We seen them get embarrassed in some games last year, but, that BYU game was embarrassing because of the physicality. They almost lost that Colorado game last year. So where's Kansas State at? So either at this point after that Iowa State game, you either have them at 2-2 or 3-1. I think most people will say 2-2. Oklahoma State, are we out on Coach Gundy and company? I'm not. Last year was a bad year, and it started at media days. I think people underestimate, spring camps. They underestimate media days. They underestimate fall camps. Things were bad. There was a lot of questions that had to be answered last year about Oklahoma State because of terrible statements. And it's okay. I know that he's going to put the work in. The roster, I was looking at Oklahoma State roster earlier. I'm not feeling great about it, but I do trust Coach Gundy, so it'd be interesting to see where they at. But I'm going to give Arizona a win here. So we're looking at 3-2 versus BYU. Where are you guys at with BYU? I'm not as high as BYU as most, but I do respect what they're able to do from a physical perspective. I like them a lot. Like I said, I like the way they play. Me knowing Big 12 ball, I just know that all of these teams that we think gonna be good from last season are not gonna be as good as we thought they were. And it's the same thing reciprocated. All the teams that we thought that were really bad, like I don't think Houston's gonna be nearly as bad as they were last season. I just don't. I think Arizona's gonna be improved as well. So the BYU game at Arizona, this gonna sound crazy, but give me Arizona. 4-2. At Houston, that's a tough game because I really don't know. I know Connor Wegman is gonna ball out this year. So at Houston, at Colorado, I think they can beat Colorado. The Houston game will be tough, but let's say they split that and they're 4-3. Home versus Kansas, winnable game. Very winnable game. So even 4-4 or 5-3 at this point. At Cincinnati is a win for me. So let's say 5-4 or 6-3. I'll say 5-4. Baylor is a really good team. Baylor's a really good team. We can either go 6-4 here, or we can go 5-5 here. Depends where we want to go. And at Arizona State, a lot of people are high on Arizona State. I'm high on them. I'm just not as high as everybody else. I think there's a path for Arizona to go 6-6. I think 7-5. Great job by Brent Brennan and staff. Great job. That means Lower Fafita really lit it up. And if they do any better than that, then you can really look out because they'll be competing with the who's who of the conference. So this is the Rebuild Report. This is a segment I try to do at least once a week. Talking about these teams, we're going to look at them, discuss them, kind of figure out where they at.